Claudia. I'm a self-proclaimed bookworm. My boyfriend, not so much. So I started summarizing entire books for him. Dramatic plot twists, romantic betrayals, magical quests, all of it. Basically, he gets the story without reading a single page. And now I'm doing the same for you. Welcome to The Whole Story, the channel where I read the book and then tell you the whole story, literally. Fantasy, romance, literary fiction. If it has yearning, magic, or emotional damage, I've got you covered. I'll tell you the whole story in 30 minutes or less, spoilers included. Yes, I will tell you who dies, who cries, and who should have just gone to therapy. So, if you like books, but you don't have the time to read all of them, or you just want to know what happens without the emotional labor, hit subscribe and let's write some endings together. Yeah, because life's too short to read 700 pages of slow burn, unless you're into it. I kinda am. So in this video, I'm going to tell you a little bit about some common concepts that are very used in the book community, some tropes, and some acronyms as well. So settle in and let's do it. I think I want to start with talking about the difference between smut and spice. I think this is a very common mistake, and especially now people talk a lot about smut or erotic romances, right? So the difference, in my perspective, the difference is that spice is the amount of explicit sexual content that is in a book, usually a romance book. It doesn't necessarily have to be a romance book. It could be a thriller that has spice, for example. It just means how much explicit sexual content there is, right? And you will see that some accounts on Bookstagram and Book Talk, they will qualify this with peppers. So if it's a green pepper, it means that it's very light and mild spice. And then they use the chili peppers to represent more or less spice. So 4 chili peppers would mean quite a lot of spice, right? And then there's different types of spice. There's open door and closed door. Closed door, they just make certain innuendos and they use specific words to refer to what's happening, but you just, they don't show. It's a closed door. So you don't actually get to see or hear everything that they're doing. Whereas open door, it's very explicit. They use the words very openly and everything's very clear. Now, this is a romance book, right? So it's still, the main plot is the love story between 2 or more characters, and there is spice spread out. When you talk about smut, that is usually a book where the sexual content is the heaviest part of the book. So the romance, it's just the vehicle that is allowing you to get through sexual encounter to sexual encounter. But the main storyline, the main part of the book is about the sexual content, right? That is smut. So when someone says that they're reading a romance book, it doesn't necessarily mean that they're reading smut. Does that make sense? There's a couple of concepts that I see a lot on Bookstagram and Book Talk. A lot of people talk about Roman empires. This is like the thing that you love, right? That you will die for. Is this the hill you're willing to die on? Like, yeah, this is my Roman Empire. Like, I will love this and support this until the end of days. That's a Roman Empire. Shadow Daddy. I think that is a very common one, especially now that the whole romantasy subgenre is picking up. Shadow Daddy is usually a main male character that has shadow powers. So dark powers, usually dressed in black, very moody, grumpy, and they're very powerful, and they are usually a bit older, sometimes a few years older, sometimes 500 years older, you know. When you talk about a cinnamon roll or golden retriever, it's the nice guy. So it's a next door guy, usually blonde or, you know, light-haired, very sweet, very kind. Then you also have red flags and green flags. I think that one is pretty self-explanatory. A red flag is when you have someone that, usually a male character, that is doing negative things or things that are triggering that you should stay away from. Green flag is when usually the male character does something that is good or that shows that they have good qualities. The collections, right? So you have a duology, that's 2 books, trilogies, 3 books, a saga or series is more than 3 books. When we come to tropes, this is one of my favorite parts. Usually tropes are found more in romance books, I think, but they can be in everywhere, right? Some of the most popular ones, like found family, where the characters or the main character has this feeling of belonging and they find someone who is not their family by blood, but they actually start to belong and they become a part of this group. It could be the family of the other, of the love interest, or it could be, you know, just a group of thieves that get together and they start to behave like family. So that's found family. So it's a very popular trope that a lot of people love. Another one is when you talk about sci-fi books or fantasy, it's very popular to have games and trials, like with Hunger Games, where there is a certain element of having to compete and pass different stages. You also have the academia trope or dark academia, where it's set in a school setting, like Harry Potter, you know, where you have Hogwarts and everything. So it could just be something that the characters are in school. Dark academia usually refers more to fantasy books where it's a school about magic or powers, or there's a certain like gothic vibe to it, like a dark vibe to it, a bit scary as well. When we have romance, you can have love triangle, right? That's when there's one main character with two love interests and they have to decide. You also have harem, which is one male character with two female characters, that there's something happening there, or a reverse harem where it's one female character with two male characters. And it doesn't necessarily mean, so a difference between that and a love triangle is that in a love triangle, the main character has to choose, and they actually choose one of them. You know, think Twilight with Team Jacob and Team Edward. She couldn't have both of them, she had to choose. Whereas in a harem, it could be that she's actually with both of them, or he's actually with both love interests at some point in the story. Then we go deeper into romance, and there's a lot of tropes when you talk about romance. Some of the most popular ones are enemies to lovers or haters to lovers, which is different, because enemies to lovers, you actually need to have that hate, like they need to be. There's a lot of people that are talking about enemies to lovers, and it's not, you know, it's just, oh, I don't like you either, and then they fall in love. That's not an enemies to lovers. At most, I would call that haters to lovers, because they disliked each other first, right? Because someone did something, but whatever. And enemies to lovers is usually in fantasy, right? Because that's when you have like a mortal enemy, a proper enemy, like you are on different sides, you know, like Romeo and Juliet, like you are enemies to begin with. And then something happens and you're either forced to work together, or, you know, you go on an adventure, and then eventually, slowly, you start to change your mind about this other person, and then you fall in love, right? So that's a proper, I think it's quite hard nowadays to find a proper enemies to lovers. You also have the friends to lovers, which I think is very self-explanatory, where they started off as friends and then they became lovers at some point. It's a very interesting, like how you do that switch, how you go from friends, like it has to be believable, because it's not like you've been friends for 10 years and now, oops, yeah, now we're lovers. Like, so it's quite, I think it's quite difficult to do it properly as well. You also have second chance romance, which is that they were together at some point, they broke up, and then they're having a second chance. So it's also quite interesting to see the dynamics there and how they turn it. It's usually like a right person, wrong time, you know. You also have age gap. That's a very popular trope. Usually it's with a younger female character and an older male character. Think of like these cowboy books that are cowboy romances that are coming up. There's a lot of those. There is also some tropes like forced proximity or only one bed, you know, where it's like they go to an inn and there's only one bed and they're forced to stay in the same room. Oh no. Forced proximity is more like if you're working together, or there's a bet, or there's something that is forcing you to stay in the same house or in the same room even. There's also marriage of convenience, where you are forced to marry someone that you don't necessarily like, and then of course you fall in love. There's also fake dating, where you start off with just pretending to like each other for mutual benefit, and then of course you fall in love while you're faking it. So before I was talking about a cinnamon roll, right? So another popular trope is grumpy versus sunshine. So when you have, this can be either way, right? It can be a grumpy male character and a sunshine female character, or the other way around. And it just means that one of them is usually like really grumpy and sarcastic and kind of moody and the other person is just like really happy, and it's how the opposites attract. One of my favorites, of course, the slow burn. Slow burn is usually combined with an enemies to lovers because it takes a really long time for them to get there. So slow burn is when there's all this tension and the suspense and the will they won't they is there throughout the entire book. And it can be that for 300 pages, nothing happens. It's like them touching is the biggest like moment ever. And then on the last like 50 pages, that's when they actually kiss. Or there's books where they don't even kiss in the first book and you have to wait for the next sequel. There's people that love it. I love it. There's people that really can't stand it. They just want to get it over with from the beginning. And then the conflict is how they try to make the relationship work. Last but not least, there's a very popular one that I see a lot, that it's the Who Did This to You? That one I see very often in fantasy books, usually combined with a shadow daddy kind of character or a morally gray character, usually male. It's the kind of character that will burn the world for you, right? They will do anything for you, and their love is so strong and they're morally gray. So they're okay with doing something bad for the people that they love, right? So usually when they find the female character and they see that something has happened or someone has hurt them, they will come up with the line, "Who did this to you?" So there's books that have a lot of "who did this to you" throughout the entire book. You know, it's very easy. Like all of these tropes that I'm talking about, at this point, you can just go on Instagram or TikTok and just Google that, and it's hashtag everywhere, and you can find a full list of books that are covering your favorite tropes. And yes, they're cliches. You already know what's going to happen. You already know that the enemies do become lovers. You already know that the friends do become lovers, that as soon as they're going to the inn, there's only one bed. It's very predictable, but it doesn't take away the pleasure that you get from reading it and when it finally happens and you're really happy, right? So, I mean, to finish off, I'm just going to cover some of the most popular acronyms that you might see as well in Bookstagram and Book Talk. Like MC means main character, MMC means male main character, FMC, female main character, right? POV, that's point of view. There's a lot of books that cover different POVs and it's very interesting. TBR means to be read. DNF means did not finish. So if you stop the book and you don't want to finish, so when people say I DNF'd this book or my TBR list is growing, you know, that's what it means. You also have TW or CW, that's trigger warning or content warning. CR means current read. I think that's it. That's it for today. If I missed any or you would like me to do a part 2, just write in the comments. Let me know if you have any questions. Again, maybe not everything is super accurate. Most of these definitions are my understanding of it. So, you know, just also happy to be proven wrong. Okay, see you next time.